G'day guys, welcome to a quick look at the Everest for 2018. Obviously a race that's created plenty of controversy and, most of it's, you can take or leave it. We've been left with is a race that looks a great betting proposition. Just having a look at the most recent odds. What are we looking at? $7 the field. Doesn't get much better than that. We've got Osborne Balls, I think, is the outsider at $18. I don't think I've seen a race this compact betting wise where there do look to be, genuinely a number of solid winning chances, and interesting to see that the Mighty Shoals has been well backed. Probably just go down the page, have a quick look at we'll talk about conditions first. So the track's looking probably, I think we'll call it an 8. It's probably what we're expecting. 7 or an 8, definitely plenty of wind around, which is a good thing. We're definitely going to see an affected surface. We're back to the true. Back in the day, that would have meant they would get well off the fence in the straight, but this track seems to have changed the profile since they put the new Kensington track in, and sometimes that inside cannot, is not too bad, but you're still expecting them to get off the fence here in the straight. We ran a 6 metre rail, was it last week, but that track looked to play pretty solidly and held together quite well, so I wouldn't expect it to be too worn out wide. But there is also wind predicted, which will hit them from the side, which can normally hurt the horses on the inside. So the answer's a pineapple a little bit. The beauty of this is that we get to see 6 races before we get to the Everest. We'll have a good idea of how the track's going to play, but I'm pretty setting up for it to be pretty fair. I'm definitely not expecting it to be mad leaders. I don't think it's going to be wet enough where it's really hard to run on. Expecting quite a bit of pressure you'd expect in this race from a fair way out. So I'd say most runners will get their chance. Ideally, you probably don't want to be too far away and with cover, which is probably the ideal. So 1 out, 1 back if you have a bit of luck. Behind leader, 3 back the fence, 1 out, 3 out with cover, which is a strong possibility in this race. Looks the best place to be. Those horses, leader, outside leader, 3 wide, are the ones who are probably going to do it tough, and the ones just behind them have got holding the aces. So looking at the map here, this is a good guide. This is just the generated map from Ratings to Win, and we've got sort of Red Zell kicking up, US Navy flag. I've sort of slotted in there manually. I think that's sort of the position he'd love to hold. Then we've got horses like Vega Magic with the blinkers back on off a 42-day break, so he's nice and fresh, likely to sort of be punching up there to either try and get in front of Navy flag, US Navy flag, or end up outside, or some say that he might try and lead. I'm not so sure about that. The horse drawn widest, well, the 2 inner time's a little bit slow to begin with, so I think she'll sort of end up 3 wide trailish sort of position ideally, and Le Romain's probably the one that kicks up from that outside draw. Even though he's coming back from a mile, he's got the winkers on, and he's 4 weeks between runs, so he should have some freshness in his legs, you would imagine. Horses like Trapeze Artist, Brave Smash, interesting runners. Even Graff with the lightweight, does he sort of force his hand a little bit and try and roll forward? I'm not so sure. I don't see him going overly hard. I think the interesting thing that I sort of think's a given compared to most people is that Red Zell doesn't want to hold third the fence. I don't think he's going to want to sort of try and poke up the fence, wait for a gap and poke up the fence or force out. I think he's a horse that really needs to roll and make his own and luck, and that'll either be by, if US Navy flag's desperate for the front, Red Zell will kick up, be positive, make US Navy flag cross him and then pop off. I don't think he wants to be negative coming out because, for example, say US Navy flag took the front and say Vega Magic came out a little bit keen and fresh, and US Navy flag end up giving up to him, then he could end up being 3 back the fence. I don't think third the fence is the spot he wants to be, and if giving up a position where like when you're on the fence. Sorry, it's sort of going back a bit here, but gate 1, when you're a sort of an on-pace type, if you give up the lead without being positive at all, you open yourself up to horses from outside to continue rolling across, and you get shuffled back. So when a horse just outside you, like US Navy flag, crosses you, if you give it, you're then open to horses even wider. Your Le Romain's, Vega Magic's rolling forward, taking the front off it and shuffling you further back. When you're positive, because you've got that attribute, you then sort of have the decision to whether you let them go and pop off, or whether you hold the position if you sort of bluff them out of it. So I'm expecting that. I think the horse is ready to do that. He's now had the 1,000 break between runs, had the 12 the other day, a really solid fitness building 1,200 metre hard run, and he's in a position now where he can try and hold the front, I think, and if they want to go too hard, he'll let him go. If not, he'll hold it and run a race. But that's enough about the map. I think that they'll run along. I can't see any way they'll sort of stack them up, sprint home here. You'd say it'll be run at an even to strong tempo, with horses in the 3 wide line looking to join in, getting itchy fingers, and those sort of runners, sort of coming in up the rise. There'll be sort of a line 4 or 5 wide, I'd reckon, minimum, charge of light brigade sort of stuff. So I don't think it's going to be for the faint-hearted up front. And I do think those horses will be a little bit vulnerable, mainly Vega Magic's vulnerable because of the wet track as well. I think the combination of that and looking like he's going to get a pretty tough run, he was my sort of on top, very confident selection if it was a good track. But things haven't worked out that way, unfortunately. But he'll still run a bold race. He's ideally set up for mine. So heading down the page, most of these runners have got good setups. It's the ones that are late comers that probably are a little bit behind the 8 ball, but we'll get to them. So number 1, Red Zell, may as well go through their form pretty solidly, this preparation at least. So he's obviously a winner of this race last year. He was, what was he, 3rd up that time? So he'd had the break 3rd up coming into this race. So he'd gone 1,011, trial 12, then he went over the autumn, he went 1,000, trial 12. Obviously, he ran 2nd to Trapeze Artist in the Group 1 there. This time he's gone 1,000, had that little break, so 28 days, which is a little bit different this time. So he went 3 weeks, and here he went 2 weeks. He now goes 4 weeks, 2 weeks. So he's had 1,000, 1,200, 1,200. I think that's fine. Obviously handles the heavy conditions. He's a 1,200 metre winner on heavy, I believe. He's a 1,200 metre winner at Randwick on heavy. Heavier track than what he'll see tomorrow. It was a 10 that day, even though it was displayed as an 8. So, no matter how wet it gets, he's going to handle it. It's just, that run last start has topped him off beautifully. You see they sort of went out quick and come home quicker, so it was a high quality race there. He set the solid tempo and ripped home first up over the 1,000. I think he's in as good a form as he's ever been in. It's just a matter of gate 1 and the pressure he's going to have to cop, and at the end of 1,200 metres. So when he won this race last year, we'll just have a quick look at it. I've lost it 16 times here, so 9.6 million or something.
Red Zell in the Triple Crown colours goes forward.
So all I want to hear is he got outside the leader pretty comfortably. They obviously went pretty quick, but he got there easily, and that's his sort of go. He can maintain that sort of pressure. He rolls into it here. He extends away, and he's completely out on his feet here. And you've got to remember this day, it was an advantage to be on the inside sort of 4 runners, and it was a 9 metre rail, I believe, or 6 metre rail, sorry. So it was definitely on pace advantage to be on this inside. Vega Magic copped a terrible ride, and probably was something beat. The horses that made ground, which Attacker and English, that were running through on that inside section, and Brave Smash obviously came through there too. Tulip and Hootson, ran better than what their prices suggested in that portion of the track too. And you can see he's just completely out on his feet late. He's entitled to be. He sat outside a fast tempo, and he's held on after putting a brake on them. I don't think he's going to get the same conditions. He's going to have more horses around him that are going to be in those positive positions. So what I'm talking about there is that horses like Brave Smash, who I don't really give a winning chance to tomorrow, Tulip, that were in the striking positions here, are going to be better quality horses this time around. You're going to have sort of Shoals in her time, possibly Trapeze Artist, and then you've got other horses like similar to Santa Ana Lane. Vega Magic's obviously going to be there as well. Verdora running home. You've got high quality horses closing and in striking position, so I think it's going to be difficult for Red Zell just that last 100 metres, considering he's going to have to work from gate 1. If they take a sit, and by some act of God he gets split at the right time and somehow shows a turn of foot, good luck. But I really think he's one that can certainly run positively. I just think he's going to be a little bit vulnerable at the end of the 1,200 metres. I watched that lead-up race the other day. He got cooked a bit there by Invincible Star. He was 4 weeks between runs, 1,000 to 1,200. You can see he got going a little bit keen for himself. You can see he's keen most of the way. He's, does his normal honest effort, gets to the 200, and then it's just the horses that have done really nothing back in the field that closed on him and in her time, who got a really, really nice runner up on the inside and around one horse. Even though she was first up, her effort was good. But even Trapeze Artist sort of gets him late, and Invincible Gem's probably the one that scares you. She's getting home first up. The horse that sat outside him, cooked him, got beaten well. But you're expecting him to improve off that significantly. But I'm expecting a couple of these runners too, and they're going to get similar conditions, I reckon, the closers, to what they had last start, to sort of get over the top of him again. So even though I expect him to improve, I expect them to improve. We've just seen Santa Ana Lane there. I think I'm not saying that they weren't trying last start, but I don't think that they were worried at all about the result, and he won in spite of that. I think his first up effort was really good at Caulfield. He's obviously turned into a bit of a machine in these big fields, handicap races, and he's what's he won there? 3-4 Group 1s in the past 12 months coming. So he's won from 1400. He won at Wagga, then he went and won a 1400 metre Group 1, 1200 at 1350. So he's won 3 Group 1s. That was a Group 2 last time round. He's a big player here, but he's one that's going to need all the breaks. He's going to get back. I'd expect him probably to get to the outside this time. I don't see how he's going to sort of cut through them. I think that'll be pretty congested. I don't think he's got enough on them to justify wanting to have him as sort of a top pick here, but he's very dangerous. He can sustain a sprint. He runs through the line over 1,200 metres. I can't see anything being stronger than him late, and it's him that makes me want to probably put a line through a horse like Fedora, who's jumping from 1,000 to 1,200. He's going to be in a similar position, probably behind a horse like Santa Ana Lane. He's got to run past him, so him being back there, he's probably the ultimate swooper. He's the tackler of the race, who needs some luck, needs to get to the outside. He can run well, can win, but certainly needs luck. La Remain's an interesting one. The race is obviously an afterthought for him. He's gone 12, 14, 16, run very well at pretty much all of those. Probably the last run was probably his best over the mile. I don't think he runs a mile super strong, even though he's 2 times a winner over that trip. But he was looking the winner against Winks there, beaten 3.5, 3.7, which he put on him late, even though it was a softish tempo. He did put the rest of them away. We've obviously seen, I think, Ace High's come out of that race and run well. Winks has won again, obviously, which is no surprise to anyone. He hasn't been seen for 4 weeks. They're throwing the winkers on him, not the blinkers, but he's never had the blinkers, I don't believe, only winkers. 4 weeks is probably enough to get a little bit of freshness back in his legs. He was really effective first up over the 1,200 here, but he did get the nicest of nice runs that day. He's never been tested at he has. Sorry, he's won at weight for age in the Group 3 level. That was a little bit softer than this. He's a 1,300 metre Group 1 winner on a heavy track, beating Chautauqua. My worry with him is that he's not going to have the sharpness to hold off a few horses here. I can see him running a really positive race. I can see him sort of chiming in. I just don't know if he's got the turn of foot to put them away and keep them away off the preparation he's had. He handles all ground, handles soft. He's drawn the right spot if the fence is no good. To have options, he's a big chance of sort of being caught 3 wide, no cover. That's a negative. I can't knock him at $18, but he's definitely not in my sort of top 3. But I think he'll run well. Trapeze Artist is an interesting one. Everyone's kind of saying he always has a bit of a dip in form. Second up, he's first up, and he doesn't really like soft going, which is evident throughout his career. My issue with that is that previous preparations, he's been set for further races. So he's gone, 1,400 metre when he won the Golden Rose 2 preparations ago. He went 13, barrier trial 15, back to 14. Huge win that day, obviously severely pace assisted, but he was wide and chasing for a long way. The run was incredible. Forget the next run. Then he came back, won first up, beaten twice by Kementari and Piarata. at 14 and 1600 metres when he was forced to sort of roll forward due to his barrier and the way the races fell. Then he came back, freshened up and went bang bang Group 1, 12, 1400 metres when given every possible chance. He's obviously a quality horse. I think he's much better on top of the ground. I'm not sure that my problem is this preparation. He's been set for 1200. He's gone 13-12. I'm not surprised to see him improve into tomorrow, and I like that the stable's great with their sprinters. Have him cherry ripe. He's coming out of the right races. It's just a matter of whether he's effective enough on top on that heavy going to put away some pretty smart sprinters here. I think he's one that gets the right run. He'll be dangerous. It's just a matter of whether he can get those wheels in motion rather than spinning on the heavy track. I think he's a risk, and I'm betting around him. Vega Magic we've talked about already. Blinkers go back on. I love his setup. 12, 12, 14, back to 12. 6 weeks between runs doesn't worry me at all for this horse. Blinkers back on. He was dominant at Caulfield in a much softer race where he looked the only leader. I know people kind of saying that he's a big chance to lead this, but you'll watch here. So this is Jungle Edge to his outside. He's not. They do end up going a slow tempo because he rips home, but he gets going a little keen here in the blinkers. I just don't think they're going to want to dig him tomorrow. If they do, he probably can lead. You can see that he did get going pretty keen there. Put these horses away quite easily over the 1200. He's never really been exposed to a heavy track. As you'll see, like the worst he's raced on was a 6, which was actually a 5. And he beat Brave Smash and Centre in a lane, which is obviously a great form reference for this. His form leading into this preparation was a little funny. He'd had the 189 days off for failure, gone back out for 70 days, and that was what we saw there when he was dominant. He was very good here over the 1400 metres with the blinkers off and the winkers applied, where he was in front with 100 metres to go and only narrowly beaten. Back to the 1200 blinkers is great. If he handles the wet, I think he's nearly the winner. I don't want to knock him. I just got too much respect for this horse. I think he should have absolutely trotted him last year. I think he's a quality animal who can sustain pressure and run well off it, which is a great advantage here. He's a major player. Brave Smash. Non-win is a bad term, but he's in 26 starts, 4 wins, 13 placings. I don't think he wins out of turn. He's obviously won here twice. One of those wins was over El Divino. The other win was over Toast and Stardom's Showtime in a Group 1 over 1400 metres. Obviously that's a good win. He was then second to Redkirk Warrior, a good effort. Beaten 6, beaten 9, don't worry about those. Then came back and beaten by Ball of Muscle Voodoo Lad, where he ran well. Again beaten by Ball of Muscle and Invincible Star. Went down to Melbourne, had a strong tempo there, which suited back to the 1000 metres, and ran on, beaten comfortably by Vidora into second. I don't see how he can turn the tables. I know that he obviously draws to get a nice enough run here from 4. He's probably going to need luck. I think he'll run well again. I think he'll run honestly. I think he'd run first 6. I just can't take him seriously as a winning chance. He's just not a horse to me that wants to put a race away. Say hello to the motorbike people up the street. He's not a horse that wants to put a race away for mine, and I think he's much more of a place hope than a winning hope. I think he's under the odds at $13. US Navy Flag's an interesting horse. They're talking about scratching it if it's wet. His wet form's just average. He's pretty one pace for an on-pace type for me, and I don't really see him winning this race. An inside gate doesn't look ideal for him. He probably has to get bustled up more than they want to get to an on-pace position. There's a few negatives against US Navy Flag that says to me that $10 is extremely short for this horse. Ryan Moore's the best, or close enough to the best rider in the world for mine. That's obviously a positive, and he'll sum things up, but there's just too much against this horse for me to take it too seriously. It's also first up for 91 days, so that's not an easy task to even in itself to, if it was a really talented type that I thought was probably, had them covered ability wise, I'd still say that was a tough task. So for this horse, who doesn't look the ideal horse, he's got a big task. In her time's a funny one. see it getting out the gate $15 plus. I think that's pretty good price for a horse that handles all ground. The only thing it does do is a little bit lazy away at the start, and probably wants to be on a game tomorrow start-wise to find a position. Needs a bit of luck from an awkward draw in gate 8 to find that spot. But coming off that 1200 metre run, I think she's ideally prepped to improve. She always improves throughout her preparation. We'll show just that the start of that last race. Don't need to see the finish of it again. But she sort of, that's her there, misses the start, ends up getting the run through, so the gate really helped her here. Everyone's staying off the fence. You can see Corey sort of sneaks, runs, never goes around a horse. He peels off the back of Red Zell after Invincible Star sort of weaves out of the way and drops out of the race. So probably, if anything, Corey could have cuddled her for a bit longer if he knew that he had Red Zell covered, so he probably could have cuddled her a little bit further down the running and maybe holds on. Her effort was really good first up. That was 140 days since last seen at the races. Obviously, just got tired that last 3 strides. We're talking about these horses, Shoals and Santa Ana Lane, as major players in this race. Well, we haven't got to Shoals yet, but I can't knock her effort other than she had every possible there. But you're expecting improvement. You know she handles softish going, even maybe a little bit better on top of it, but that's okay. The going, that is, you know, she's won 1300 metres on a softish track and was a bit unlucky a couple other times on soft going, so you know she's going to run well. Just needs a little bit of luck early in the race from Corey to sort of find a spot, you know, 3 wide with cover, even if he snuck sort of 3 back, 1 off and get some luck. I think in her time runs well, and $15 is value. Shoals, who I'm obviously a bit biased about with Timmy Clark being the rider for the horse. I've always thought she profiled extremely well for this race. She's a mile winner, which nothing else in the race other than I think US Navy flag has done. Oh, sorry, we've got the Remain as well. So she's going to be one of the stronger horses in the race. Santa Ana Lane's obviously a 1350 metre or 1400 metre winner as well. So there's a few horses in the race that tick that box. She's a 1200 metre at Randwick on heavy. She ticks that box. She's obviously now ticked the weight for age box, which I wasn't too worried about. She just had too much quality form and too many good pointers. Like a horse that's built like her, if anyone's ever seen her, she's quite a nuggety little sprinting type, and it's amazing that she's ever won over a mile, even if it was in fillies and mares or 3-year-old grade. She obviously won the fillies and mares mile race as well at Flemington last year. It's incredible what she's done. Her first up run I thought was great. She was probably ridden a touch close off a fast tempo, and she stuck on quite well. She proved that she was all quality last time out, coming from last. She was probably ridden a little bit more conservatively there just to make sure that she didn't have a hard run coming into this, and that probably cost her the race. But in saying that, it was just a perfect run to bring her on for this race. It was a little advantage to come down the middle of the track there that day, and the speed was on. It wasn't actually a slow tempo because they came home so quick, but her effort was great. She was building and probably peaked 50 metres out, so she looks to be ideally positioned here. Anyone who's seen her, this is what you probably want to watch. Shoals in the red and white colours. You just watch how good she is out of the gate. So that's her there over 1,000 metres against fast horses like Sunday Escape, Nature Strip, Hootson. They don't come much faster. She's beaten for speed after that, but we'll watch again here. I think she's drawn out wide here. This is last start in the Premier Stakes. Again, she's, you know, as quick as anything. You can see he came out really negative on her there, and he was as quick as anything. So I can imagine that he's going to bounce probably in front of Red Zell. Then he gets the position to be able to see whether Red Zell kicks up. If he kicks up, I'm sure that they'll probably slot him behind him. Otherwise, even could hold a position, you know, outside Red Zell if he decides to give up the lead by some crazy thing. Otherwise, he's going to get the tag on Red Zell wherever it goes. Hopefully, gets, you know, a split there, and he just, if he gets the run that in her time got last start here, that would be ideal. And I can't see her anywhere but in the finish. You'll see here, this is Santa Ana Lane and her. Santa Ana Lane cuts to the inside. She goes outside. Santa Ana Lane never goes around a runner. Obviously, it didn't look ideal to be up the fence there, so plenty of merit in his run. Whereas she's come around them, got the tag up and got arguably the better part of the track. But what you like about her is the way that she builds and builds. She gets comfortably past Trapeze Artist, and you see there she's sort of going through her gears. She handles soft. You know she's going to quicken. She's a little bulldog. She'll take the gap. It's hard to knock this horse. I know she was an outsider for much of betting, but I think she justifies her position somewhere, close to equal favourite here. She's the one that ticks the most boxes for mine. She's had a flawless preparation, touch wood. 1,000 metre run trial, 1200, absolutely ideal setup for this 1200. Draws the right gate. She's got gate speed to hold a spot. She doesn't need to be ridden super negatively here, so especially now she's peaking. She sat outside the leader here a few times in weaker grade and won over 1,600 metres. There's just a lot of ticks, 1,400 metres as well, sorry. So there's a lot of ticks for this horse. I hope she just sees a chance and she runs well. Vedora is a horse that I've got talked about. I think this is a bit of an afterthought. I know they were polling to try and get a spot here, but what I don't like about her is 1,000 to 1,200 metres. She did it last preparation, 1,000, 1,200, and was only beaten 2 lengths at Moonee Valley. Previously, she's never done it. She ran 1,000 to 1,200 and was beaten by Target Inside at the Gold Coast. That was only a 63-day break. We're talking about a 132-day break. So she's a quality horse. You see, she's always with that run under her belt again. It makes it easier to run well. It takes a horse for me that it's got to run sort of 1,400 metres to be able to cope with the jump from 1,000 to 1,200 and run its absolute best. And the problem with this horse is that it's probably going to have to run past the entire field. So, it's going to have to do the most work from back in the field to circle the most runners and have to try and be strong at the end of it against horses who are proven to be strong. So I know it's bagging a 16 to 1 chance, but it's just a horse in an open race that I can't find. Most other runners have stronger setups, will find better challenging positions, and have more strength on their side. So if Vedora wins, it'll be a surprise for me. Graph, 21 days since last seen, back 200 metres in distance. I've got no problem with that. Where it gets to from the run, I've got a problem with. I've heard sort of may go forward, may go back. Gate 10 is not ideal. Not sure where it gets to in the run. I'm not sure. My worry is what is he? He was dominant first up, but now we're looking back at that form. We're looking at neutrality. We're looking at performer. Jonker's coming out and run okay. Tchaikovsky has had a run, but never, I think it's seen a wet track and done no good. Ring a Ding Ding's gone back in grade and back to Melbourne and won a race. The only other winner that's come out of the race of provincial plate, metropolitan placing is the Jonker. Nothing else has won in grade since that race. So we're a bit of a worry over that race. He obviously came out and then ran against a horse that does look serious, or he got beaten by, Lean Mean Machine had a tough run there. And a wet track, but Lean Mean Machine should have put probably a bigger margin on him. Then came out and didn't have every possible, but probably had a better chance than the Autumn Sun who's run past him. We're looking at his graph here. He was forced wide here. Had to sort of give the card up to the Autumn Sun, who's well behind him. Had to sort of circle most of the field. But he was pretty comfortably beaten late. I'm not saying there wasn't strong merit in his run, and the fourth horse here came out and was a bit unlucky last week. I think Zusane's quality. I think it takes a dominant 3-year-old to go to weight for age and really want to be a leading chance here. But I don't want to knock him at $18. I think that's probably about his price. I'd have him as a better winning chance than Vedora, but only slightly. Interesting that sort of making this clearer in my own mind as we're sort of going through these horses individually. And now we're sort of heading down towards Osborne Balls, who is obviously in this race because its stablemate Home of the Brave was a late withdrawal just before, I think after the barrier draw, but just before the sort of final fields were announced that evening. So he's slotted into the race. He was running in the Sydney Stakes. If he didn't gain a start here, he has had I don't mind the preparation, so he's gone 12, 14, back to 12. 21 days between runs. His effort was okay last time in a Group 1 behind Jungle Cat, where he got well back into the field and got home okay. His effort was good. First up in a pretty poor race, I thought, at Caulfield. He's yet to prove himself at this level. Obviously, only beaten 1.2 last start of Group 1 is a good sign, but he's sort of done most of his work in benchmark races. He's a listed winner at Scone, where he sort of found the right race. So he's the one that's got to prove that he's up to this. The only thing he does have his favourite here is that he's a knockout horse. That's the sort of horse he is. He's going to get back. He's going to need a bit of luck. He's got no pressure on him. If he gets all the splits at the right time, he can be dangerous. If they overdo it up front, he can be dangerous, but he needs to bring his absolute A game, you'd imagine. We're talking about a horse that's got form around horses like Tribal Wisdom, Savapinski, Red Excitement, Invincible Gem, which is not too bad, Miss Q, Special Missile, Oxford Poet, Stonebrook. These are horses that you wouldn't necessarily be saying are worthy of lining up in an Everest. Is he a little bit better over a little bit further? I think 1200 is probably pretty good for him, especially at this level. It's probably his best chance. I think a wet track's looks okay. He's had 2 starts on 5 rated surfaces and got home both times, so it looks like it probably helps him, if anything, to measure up. It's just a matter of whether he can sort of measure up. I can't take him too seriously, but if he got out to 50 to 1 or something, I'll be having a couple of dollars on him to make sure he didn't go out a loser, because he's a horse that can run positively, and he's going to run the 1200 out strongly, and he'll probably be ridden for a bit of luck from that gate. And if he gets it, you never know. But he's not a horse I'm taking too seriously, he's not a leading chance for mine. So that's sort of a run through all the runners. I think the main horses to beat, I think, sort of heading down again. I think Red Zell will be there, but I'm saying that he's going to be a little bit vulnerable that last 100 metres, and I'm expecting something to get over him. Centre Anna Lane's dangerous horse, but I do think it's not ideally set up for him here, and there's probably a few in front of him that are going to be a little bit more dangerous. I think Vega Magic's going to be right in the race. If he handles the wet, I'm sort of conflicting to what they say. I think he's kind of well set up to handle it this time. If he has a little bit of luck in running, doesn't get charging, he's going to be there for a very long way. I think he'll probably beat Red Zell home, depending how wet it is. So the wetter the better, probably for Red Zell. In her time, I think's the extreme value runner. I think $15 her is an incredibly good odds. She sort of does nothing but run well. She's a bit of a freak, and if she steps away okay and finds a nice little challenging position, I think she runs really well. I think Scholes is definitely the horse to beat. I don't think she's got a clear edge over anything. She's just got a really good setup. It's like her stablemate, Santa Ana Lane. She draws ideally to follow those key runners early in the race, Red Zell, and if she gets room to move, which is not a given from the inside draw, so we're just touching wood here, if she gets her chance from that gate and she can build up a head of steam, I can't see her doing anything but running well. I think she's ready to peak and run well. And you can take my bias into that or not, obviously, with the rider aboard, but I've just been watching her for a long time and she ticks a lot of boxes. Vador I'm not that keen on. Graf we've talked about. He's going to probably need a career best, and Osborne Bulls needs all the luck. So I think the main winning chances kind of in order for me are Scholes from Vega Magic, Santa Ana Lane, a knockout, and maybe La Romaine is my other 20 to 1 chance that I think just has the right seasoning to run well here. Sorry, did I mention In Her Time? Sorry, Scholes from In Her Time, Vega Magic, then we're sort of talking La Romaine, Santa Ana Lane. I think La Romaine, Santa Ana Lane is the next 2, but my top 3 were Scholes, In Her Time, Vega Magic, and then off to Santa Ana Lane and Red Zell. Sorry, La Romaine. Red Zell will be right there. It's a great race. I'm not full of confidence, but I do think those top 3 are the best set up horses to run nicely here, and the others have a little bit to prove at this level. Sorry, it's gone for too long, 34 minutes, but hopefully that gives you whatever runner you wanted to know about. I've run through most of them and why I do and do not like each and every runner. So hopefully every horse has their chance tomorrow. It's a great race, and it continues on in years to come because it is a great concept. I think it's something different that's really added a bit of spice to the game that's needed, not just for racing diehards like whoever's probably listening to this, but for those around. Like everyone kind of knows about the Everest and knows about the horses in it now. So it's good for racing as a whole. Thanks, guys, and good luck with not just the Everest, but everything, the big dual meeting cards for Sydney and Caulfield tomorrow. Cheers.